So I would like to welcome everybody to the December edition of Wise Women and Good Men, which is all about the art of writing a remarkable newsletter. And of course, I had to use the word art in the title because one of our guests is Art Petty. The other is Amber. And I forgot to ask Powers with an S because I noticed that her email has power without it. So I thought, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't.
Yes.
No,
No,
I
you're
didn't
right. Amber Powers
because
with the
I'm the
S.
Diana and the More, More, of the Peterson-More, and having been corrected on the spelling of my name when I was younger, and even today, a lot of people put the two O's in. So I try to be very good about other people's names.
So Diana, every time I feature one of your articles in my newsletter, I do have to double check more. M-O-R-E or
Yeah,
M-O-R-E. So
yeah.
hopefully I haven't goofed that up yet.
No, I don't think
Mhm.
so. I mean, and I still get a lot of Diane. Way back
Yeah.
when Princess Diana was alive, people knew my name was Diana, but the fallback is Diane and then Moore with two O's. I always say Moore instead of more. Anyhow, I am grateful, given the time of the year being crazy and wonderful, to both Art and to Amber for willing to participate today and for all of you who are listening. So, one of the things we know about newsletters on LinkedIn, which both of them publish on LinkedIn, and they of course will talk about that, is that LinkedIn says there are 36,000
Oof.
newsletters newsletters published each month, which is a little bit daunting. I happen to write one myself, and I didn't know any of that stuff. Mine is not as ambitious as theirs. I do it quarterly. They are far more frequent than that. But how do you distinguish yourself? What do you write about? So, without further ado, Art and Amber, why don't you give us a brief bio about you and kind of the journey that got you to newsletters? And then after that, we'll take a deeper dive. So, let's start with Amber.
Sure. So I am a fractional COO. For the past 20 years, I've been solving operational bottlenecks, including manual workarounds, dirty data, and stalled projects. So I turn strategic goals into actionable processes and streamline workflows and improve cross-functional teams along the way. So executives call me when they are burnt out from trying to keep up with growth, but they want a better solution than just hiring more people or spending more money on their technology stack.
Wow, that's a mouthful. Art, how about you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to highlight that I'm familiar with Amber's work and she is remarkable. So it's an honor to
Thank you.
be here with her. So
Thank
I'm
you.
an alum of the tech industry. Last corporate
Mhm.
jobs involved serving leading software companies, had a wonderful career, loved everything we did. And I spun off after the sale of a software company and did all of these things I always wanted to do, of one of which was where Amber and I crossed paths in teaching MBA courses. But
My
I've been,
favorite class, by the way.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I've been on my own for a long time. I serve as an executive coach. I work mostly these days with those individuals just reaching for the executive ranks. So I call them
Mm.
emerging executive leaders. I love that. I've developed a nice following over time. Go figure. Something writing over 2,000 articles on leadership and management, which, by the way, I write because I'm trying to figure things out. Someday I may actually figure it out. And I started the newsletter just as a tool to give back to my audience and share ideas with them. And there's a bit of an origin story there that I can share if interested. But yeah, it's just something that has become a regular part of the rhythm of my work, and I love it.
Well, those of us who read it love it too. So we're going to take a deeper dive and we're going to ask Art to start. He does something that is amazing and unique. And I don't know where you get the time or energy, but his leadership caffeine, which one can either read in the morning with caffeine or at night with a glass of wine.
Yeah.
Art reads prolifically, and he is gracious and acknowledges others. And his newsletter is all about his pointing out within the time frame, which is usually is roughly a week, the best I can gather,
Typically,
maybe
yeah.
a week plus a few days sometimes. And
Mhm.
he will highlight, spotlight others who have written posts or articles that he really admires. And I just think, gosh, first of all, how do you do everything and have the time to do it? But it's such a unique spin. So maybe the origin story would be helpful. Tell us how you launched that Leadership Caffeine and why.
I wish it were a great strategic insight or a unique innovation. Here's how it came about, and I can't take credit for it. So, my marketing director at the time, coincidentally also named Amber, recognized that one of the things I did every week was I consumed as much content as possible. Look, I need to keep current. I'm in front of clients all of the time. I'm in front of groups. I'm leading courses. I'm running workshops. I need to
Mm-hmm.
stay current. So I am driven to consume content and I'm looking for ideas and I try to bring a beginner's mind to the concept. And my marketing director, Amber, understood that also loved Tim Ferriss's 5 Bullet Friday email.
Uh,
And she said, Art, why don't you do something like that for your audience and the leadership community? And it's like, okay, Amber, that's brilliant. And I don't know, it's 8 or 9 years later, I'm doing that. And while I publish on LinkedIn, the primary audience is actually through email. There's, over 10,000 subscribers via email, and the LinkedIn audience is growing. That's a more recent entrant. So that's the origin story, and it just becomes, as I said earlier, the rhythm of what I do. I consume content, I look for great ideas, I meet amazing people like you, Diana, through things like this and through sharing the articles, and I share those insights along with my own insights.
yes, but wow. And I just learned something from you because I've been exclusively publishing on LinkedIn and I'm thinking, why am I not sending my newsletter out? I was, I asked the woman, among other things, Art and I share an amazing woman, Jennifer Coleman, who is responsible for the technology and a bunch of other things, probably keeps us both in line. But Jennifer, I just asked her one day, do we have any idea how many people actually open the newsletter? And she said that on average, I'm 40%, and that's very high, which I didn't know. And I thought maybe that's because I just do it quarterly. I don't know. But I thought that was I'm grateful and proud, but that also lets you know that there's of those 36,000 newsletters that probably all of them are not reaching that level. So, Amber, your turn. Tell us about why, because I know you're more recent entrant, and the secret sauce, your secret sauce.
Sure. So I started writing mine about 6 months ago. And what I read was, all those 36,000, a lot of them aren't consistent. And so I thought I have to do something that's consistent. So weekly, that was a little too much. I decided to go monthly, and I've written every month so far. And the reason I started writing it is because a lot of the people that I work with or the people that I meet and that kind of thing, they just don't need me right then. They might need me 6 months from now. It's not like I'm selling a product or anything. So I wanted to stay in front and keep me top of mind. So once a month I send out the newsletters so that, maybe 6 months from now, somebody, the light bulb goes off and was like, oh, you know what? I could use Amber. So that all seemed very reasonable. And I really, I just wanted it to be content. So there's not too much, nothing flashy about it. I actually love to read Ozan Verril's. He sends one out every week and I really enjoy it. And there's nothing flashy about it. So that's mine. And I just stick to some kind of operational um, piece that helps people, that can help anybody. And it usually relates to something that's, throughout the month, be like, oh, that's what I'm going to write about this month. So I pick up something and then give some nuggets to people that, it goes from anybody, but also goes to executives who are looking for, just need some help in that operational space of how do I get the execution side of things.
Well, I really enjoyed reading your December offering because which was then highlighted in Art's Leadership Caffeine. And it was also about the Lysol incident, which had to do with an episode on Thanksgiving that maybe Amber will briefly share, but she used that. I loved her sense of humor. It got us all reading, and she distilled it down to 5 points of leadership. And I like the way the leadership points are wrapped into a personal story. I think it makes it, for me, it's a lot more engaging. And it's so funny. We were talking about Julie Winkle Giulioni. How did I meet her? Way back
Mhm.
when I was head of HR at the Times Mirror company at the enterprise level. She worked at Zanger Miller, which was one of three training companies. And my team and I pioneered one of her offerings, but she's great at writing content. And I think about this, the connection with you, Ambers. I think about this a lot. One of the things, I became a certified Zinger Miller trainer, facilitator. But one of the things I talk about is you're not supposed to talk about yourself, which of course I kind of violate. And I think it's important because I think people relate to um, those experiences and they can draw the connection that well, first of all, they realize you're human, you're not perfect, you're not Moses handing down the tablets of the Ten Commandments, you're a real life person who makes mistakes, but also how any situation can be redefined into leadership principles. So tell us a little bit about the incident and then tell us about the 5 leadership principles that you highlighted.
Sure. So it was Thanksgiving, and my mother-in-law was making the stuffing, and all of a sudden we heard this, "Oh no!" from the kitchen, and she said, "I think I just sprayed Lysol in the pan instead of Pam." So my mother-in-law is the most organized person you will ever meet. So, you like to say you marry you marry your mother. Well, that's how my husband ended up with me. But anyway, she immediately had 2 backups. She's like, I could call my sister. She always has extra stuffing, or we're just going to have to, everybody hold back a little bit and not eat. And it just, as that happened, we all figured it out. So within 5 minutes, everything was fine. And it got me thinking about how you plan operationally, and just leadership of being more proactive and not reactive. So that goes to prioritizing work, organizing the work, creating the workflows instead of just, oh, randomly you do this, you do that, you do this, and just kind of figure it out on the fly, so that you really have a chance to execute cleanly and be able to review what you've done. And that's what she did. And I just thought, wow, you're just standing in the middle of your kitchen and you can bring all of these leadership, organization, operational work into. So I thought, okay, let's draw this in, draw it together. So that's how it came to
So
be.
it was having the plan B
Plan
or
B.
C in
Yes.
this
Plan
case.
B or
Oh,
plan C. So you can be
So,
proactive and not reactive.
Amber, your mother-in-law could have a next profession in helping people. My wife and I love
yes.
entertaining, and we're usually on the brink of what could be something great for people or a complete disaster. But I think with your mother-in-law's guidance, we could end up on the right side of that line more often than not.
I agree. I
Well,
agree.
well, after I read it, I said to Amber, in fact, I was just thinking about it this morning. I have a whole extra casserole of stuffing in my refrigerator. And I thought, I didn't put it in the freezer. I put it in the refrigerator. It's probably time to, pitch the whole thing. That along with half of a pie that what went uneaten. But I thought, gee, if I'd known that, I could have flown it out. But I I grew up and my mother was an excellent cook
Mm.
and she did a lot of events. And she was always so pleased because she thought what she had done was that she just anticipated how much people were going to eat because we always ended up with nothing. Never occurred to her that had she made more, people might be eating more. So I err on the side of freaking out and I think I may have heard someone make that comment at one point in time, oh, you go to Eleanor's house, you better eat beforehand because you might not get enough food. Um, and so I always tend to be on the, you know, overcommit side and overbake and over everything else. So, Art,
Yeah.
what offerings do you have for us? What are some leadership principles that spring to mind for you?
Oh my gosh. When you write a few thousand articles on this topic and then you're asked a question like that and your mind goes blank, I have themes that I'm working with people on that are really pertinent today in this
Uh-huh.
world. And again, the group that I'm spending most of my time with are what I term emerging executives. The things that they're struggling in many cases with, one, how to cultivate the influence in organizations essential to lead and lead transformation at scale,
Hmm.
how to guide and lead transformation, how to work and again the term lead horizontally across organizations. Those are some of the big things that are really on their minds. So a lot of my work focuses on helping them begin to navigate in those areas, and it is so rewarding to see them put the ideas to work, make the ideas their own, and then begin to have some success in guiding and leading change, at leading at scale, at building teams cross-functionally, at doing something I call leading in the gray zones.
Hmm.
Those areas where we all know that we have a problem, but nobody really owns it, and building coalitions to solve those things. So that's where a lot of the emphasis is, and a lot of my passion, and frankly, a lot of what you see in the newsletter directly goes to that audience and those topics. I want to deliver in a concise manner information, ideas above and beyond my own that can help them, and that's what that newsletter is supposed to do.
Oh, interesting. So those were kind of broad themes. Do you
They
want to
are.
unpack it a little bit and give us a few specific drill down? I recommend you do X, Y, and Z that's worked for people because that's that emerging leadership, that's a tough one because they've got a boss, they've got peers, they obviously have subordinates, and um, it's sometimes tough. I mean, each of the groups, my experience is each of those groups usually want something slightly different from you.
Sure, sure.
And if you're working for a boss that's from the old school of I say jump, you ask how high, and they're still out there, sadly.
Yeah,
Um,
they're not extinct yet, are they?
they're not. It's not an extinct. They're not dodo birds yet. So I'm curious some of the nuggets that you pass along that have been successful.
The nuggets include invest in developing your presence. And I hate that phrase, executive presence. It's an overused label that if you ask 20 people what it means, you'll get 20 different definitions. And we all know it when we see it, but we can't really describe it. So
Hmm.
invest in developing that. And the simple translation is, and people just find this enlightening, how do you want others to experience you? And we often don't think about that in an organization. How do you really want others to experience you? All right. And do you want them to, experience you with confidence as an articulate communicator, as someone that brings empathy, but is also a good decision maker? So one of the core things we focus on is develop that, gain input, gain the feedback you need, and really take control. Again, a word I don't love, but take control of your own brand. So that
Mm.
area is one for sure. And the other one is a build of something that I learned from a mentor early in my career. Maury offered this piece of wisdom to me a couple of years out of college. Art, you'll go as far as you're able to communicate. Not being the brightest bulb, it took me about a decade to figure out what Maury meant, and I finally got it. It's like, oh. He meant I needed to navigate challenging conversations. I need to learn to adapt to different. I get it, yeah. And so I've kind of added to that over time. And one of the nuggets that I emphasize is, look, we need to run to the challenging topics, the challenging conversations. Those are the ones where we solve problems, right? We identify new ideas, we repair relationships, we build new relationships, we challenge strategies, we challenge the dominant logic. Those are the conversations that will make the difference in your life. So I really work with individuals to grow comfortable with that. Go figure, most people that you encounter don't run to the challenging conversations. And that's a discipline that we develop together. So those are a couple of the areas.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I was always an odd duck because that was the kind of thing I did. And
Um,
in my corporate life, the first company I worked for, which happens to be a utility that started the Eaton fire to remain anonymous, I'm fond of saying I made a meteoric rise to the glass ceiling. I was an employment lawyer
uh,
by profession. I was brought in as an employment lawyer, I was then promoted into HR. We had a self-funded and administered healthcare plan. Which was interesting. I negotiated a PPO way back when, and then I was elected as corporate secretary. There were 18 officers, 17 men and me. And I would go into meetings and I don't know why. I really don't know where my sense of self-confidence came from. And I have three children, a son and two daughters. My elder daughter is who was a pain growing up, is the one who's most like me. And she's developed that sense of confidence too. So I always knew I had a voice and I used it. But I also was aware of the fact that in certain environments, it was still tough for a woman to do that. So, Amber, have you found that? I'm curious because, my daughter will say to me, I wrote her a poem once. I was receiving an award, and I wrote an acceptance was really about how things had changed. And she comes up afterwards and she goes, "Mom, they haven't changed that much." So I'm just kind of curious. Do you find that there's still a little bit of a tinge of sexism out there?
I do now and again. I will say that going on my own, it's fascinating how I think it's tougher when you're in the corporate world, as much as going out on your own is also very tough in a different way. It has really allowed me to find my voice and to speak up easier, faster, quicker. So what you're saying, Art, is so incredibly important. It is hard to do in the corporate world. So being able to have a coach, being able to work on that in various environments is so important if you want to move up to that executive level. And so I think being self-employed now has given me that opportunity. And so yeah, I mean, and there's a book that I read, Alison Fragale, Likeable Badass is what it's called. And she talks about a lot about that for for women and really tangible things that you can do. But I think it's so important to be in those conversations. And at the beginning of your career, you just sit and you're told, oh, you're supposed to listen, you're supposed to absorb. But at some point, you've got to speak up. And those first few times are very intimidating and you might get pushed back, but you keep going, then people start listening. So I applaud Art for coaching people who wanted to move up to that level.
A little data point, and I don't know what the derivation of it is, but 70% of my executive coaching clients are female. And the challenging conversations topic and developing the skills is one that we work on almost exclusively. So Diana, that raw confidence that you brought, I mean, what a gift that you have and had in that environment. Some people need some support and help to find that confidence.
Oh, yeah.
To speak up.
Yeah, and I honestly, I mean, I don't really know where it came from. I mean, I mentioned prior to being live. Well, we were live, but guests weren't theoretically not on. I have an older sister, a younger sister, and a brother, and I was really more like the first boy in the family, in retrospect, and it was very challenging. My father was very strict with me, and he didn't really appreciate the challenges that women faced until I started encountering some of them. So I thought that was an interesting transition. So on the newsletter front, so we're learning a lot about Art and about Amber and their messages. There are pros and cons to doing it. And if somebody who's listening is thinking about launching one, let's start with Amber. Why don't you tell us kind of the pros and cons and any advice you might give them, and then we'll loop Art back into the conversation. So Amber, you decided to do it 6 months ago, and
yes. And it's looking for the content, so that's one thing, is coming up with the idea. And it's also just having the confidence that somebody wants to read, and which, there's people out there. I think the most important thing to understand is that there's people out there who want to relate to what you're saying. So you have something to say. There's an audience for it. You don't have to please everybody, but there's an audience for what you have to say, and they want to resonate with you. Like I was, to your point, how you said you had a 40% read rate. I have a 50% read rate. It's high. And I'm like, really? People want to hear me. And so it gives you a little confidence to keep doing that. People are reading what you have to say. So, and you can be as technical as you want to be. So you can be very focused on a certain area of people. It's just, um, it just keep doing it. And I found it gets easier. Like I said, now during the month, I'm looking for like, okay, what am I going to write about this month? Right. I enjoy it. And so, and you may do it a few times, like, okay, this isn't for me, but I think when you start writing, you'll say, okay, you'll find your niche. I mean, Art found his niche, right? It's very, very different from mine, but you found the space and you obviously have a huge following. So there's something to be said for sharing other people's ideas too.
It's interesting for me, and I really like the email idea. When I look at the emails of people who actually, open up and read it, they're not people I know, unless they've changed their email addresses and I'm unaware of it. But I really do like, I thought, geez, why am I not doing that? I'm going to take a page out of your book and also send them out. But one of the things that I thought was great about the December one, that was the Lysol incident, is it was immediately engaged people. It was something like we all could sit there and say, oh gosh, what if that happened to me? What would I do? And then you really just did a nice segue into kind of lessons learned. And you did it briefly, in the old be brief, be brilliant, be gone. People just are not, for whatever reasons, and I know a lot of it has to do with the internet, et cetera, but people are not as focused on reading things that really take a deeper dive. And what I like about Arts is he has, a little paragraph on each of the 4 or 5, or that's usually about the number that he highlights. And so people can say, I'll dive into this one, or I'll take all 5 of them, or I'll look at this one. So there's an opportunity to select. And now that we know that you're really doing it for, a specific audience, it's funny. Our friend Julie Winkle Giulioni, we were talking about her earlier, and in fact, I'm starting this in 2026. She said to me, "Why are you not just highlighting your books all the time in all your conversations?" And I thought, "Yeah, duh. Why am I not?" I mean, what I've been doing in these conversations are things that are of interest to me. Like, this is a topic that's of interest to me, so I think, well, somebody else might find it interesting, which is kind of why I've, weaving in the leadership principles to it. But that's really going to be my focus for next year. It's going to be leaders on leadership. But sometimes I just, I end up not, even though I do a lot of strategic planning, sometimes I'm not that strategic. I'm kind of, oh, well, I like this, so I think I'll do this. It'll be fun. And it is. But I might have a broader impact if I follow suggestions from either one of you. So what would be the downside, Amber? Is there any downside in your mind to doing it, to writing a newsletter?
I think the time commitment is, being able to have the time to write it, and the setup. It does take a little bit of a setup. I also email mine out along with LinkedIn, and so it's I use a application called Brevo and put all the emails in there, and then you can send it out that way. So that first time it does take some setup to make sure you go through all the steps so that it gets sent out and you're not, kind of screwing it up or whatever. So there's a little bit of it there. I mean, I don't know. I don't see the downside because I do enjoy it. And I think one of the greatest things, you send it out and you look at LinkedIn and there are people like it, maybe they comment, but one of the best things is when I get people commenting in real life.
Yeah.
So if I meet people, if I see people, friends, family, colleagues, even prospects, like that, when they comment to me, like, oh, I really like your content. It's so relatable. I'm like, that's what I'm going for, because that's what my business is. It's about I am all about the execution of work, and it doesn't have to be hard. It's putting one foot in front of the other and collaborating and moving forward. And so when I hear from people that they are reading it, I'm like, okay, you don't comment, but that's okay, because that's my favorite part. So it's, I think, from the just aside from the time commitment, it's scary a little bit to start, but there's no downside.
So before we turn to art, what I think about a lot in the work that I do is it's like there's a mill pond, that placid lake, maybe the one behind you in the summertime,
Oh, yeah.
and you throw a pebble in the middle of it, and there's these concentric rings that go out. And that's kind of when you're talking about people not commenting, it comes that graphic comes to mind because they're thinking about it, or it might come to them later. And gosh, I remember at one point in time, I did a lot of training for the Center for Nonprofit Management, and I mentioned the person who did the programming. I said, the one thing, I mean, I like to do what I do, but I don't always get feedback. And literally, I put that out into the universe, and three people that week came up to me and thanked me for something. And one time I was at a restaurant with my three children, and a woman walks by with her mother, and she goes, "I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want you to meet my mother. This is the woman who changed my life." And I'm thinking, "Gosh, I did." And my kids are looking at me like, "Mom," they were younger at the time. They're all adults now, and I literally had asked the question, where, talking about creating your own life. And I said, where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years? And I mean, just that simple little question. And she said it caused her to change her job, to refocus on education. And I thought, wow, I mean, people have to also be ready to hear the lesson and to be able to embrace it. It's like Art saying that Maury made a comment about communication, and it took him 10 years to have the aha moment to really own it. So to me, that's a lot of what happens in this kind of work. Okay, Art, the pros and cons, the ease and difficulty of newsletter writing for those out there who are interested in doing such.
So, I pick up the pros. You two did a brilliant job of highlighting that. If I had a dollar for every time I've received a note from someone who said, Art, I've been reading your newsletter forever, and it's something I look forward to every week, and this article changed the way I handled something, or this approach changed that. If I had a dollar for that, we'd all have a really nice dinner together. So that reward is just wonderful. And that goes to my key point. If you're going to write a newsletter, and by the way, I think there is a downside. It can be a grind, especially if you're going after consistency and regularity. And in my case,
Mhm.
it can be a little bit of a grind. You better have a purpose. You better have a greater sense of purpose other than yourself and what you're trying to do. You want to give something to the audience out there. And that goes to kind of my first principle, which is treasure that audience. If they've
Mhm.
signed up to receive ideas from you, that's a unique gift that they've given you, and you need to honor that. You need to treasure that. You need to be timely and consistent and provide good ideas. And Diana, even sometimes those outlandish ideas that really interest you, that can be a positive thing as well. One of my goals is always to help people think and think differently. And you know what? If it's a little outlandish, I kind of like that. So treasure the audience. Have a purpose in mind that you're doing it. Keep it enticing enough that they're looking forward to it. The personal story, Amber, is genius. The Lysol,
Mhm.
that is genius. I have to mention one of my very good friends and mentors, Wally Bach, writes the best personal family articles ever. If anyone's
Yeah.
listening to this who knows Wally, try to convince him, please, to write a collection of his family stories because they're so enticing, they're so engaging, and they carry the lessons forward. So make it enticing. And then you get to those issues of should you talk about yourself or your services or your books. You know what? They've signed up for it. I don't like to be obnoxious about it. Nothing smarmy, nothing used car like, but I will include. I've got a program coming up. Those that are interested can click on it or not. And I will highlight that regularly. And you know what? I love to give back. So, Diana, you've hit on the theme. I know I have met so many great people here, and I'm so in awe of the work that they do that the chance to share their ideas is just kind of an honor. And frankly, it's kind of helped grow the popularity of the newsletter as well because they've shared it out with their audiences and it takes on that sort of perpetual motion scenario. So the last thought I'll highlight, and this is a little bit more technical. One of the things that I use the newsletter for is market research. So,
Hmm.
Diana, you mentioned
Interesting.
that you get to see what people are. Every week, I get to see the topics that people are interested in. I leverage that data. I want to know what people are interested in. That, that content, that topic might end up in a workshop. It might end up in a blog post or a series of blog posts. So that can be a real benefit. But the con, I think it can be a bit of a grind. I've been doing this one for 10 years now. Every once in a while,
Wow.
you'll find me with my head on the desk saying, ah. And then you get a note, like you say, from somebody who really
That's right.
benefited from something, and it's just like rocket fuel
We
to,
haven't heard
That's
from
right.
you. Yeah.
yeah, to do it again.
Yes.
So yeah, and also accept the loneliness. If I send 10,000 out via email and whatever I have on LinkedIn following a few thousand, and there's crickets in return, you could kind of grow a little disillusioned. Well, that doesn't mean that people aren't benefiting from it, enjoying it, and so forth.
Mhm.
Like both of you, I have a nice open rate too, 42.5% on average. So that click rate's a little lower than that. So people open, they don't always click through in my links. I measure that. Um, just recognize you're trying to do something good to help people. And I got away a long time ago from trying to show the world how smart I thought I was. So that's not the point of my newsletter.
Well, I really like that question you posed, essentially, of how do you want to be seen? How do you
Yeah.
want people to view you?
Yeah.
And I've never really phrased it that way. I was thinking, yeah, that's absolutely what it's all about. It's interesting, um, because I know you guys know that my two books have been on communication, so I really focus on communication, and that really fascinates me. I've always been observant of people and what motivates them, et cetera. But um, I I call that redefining success when you have a different way of looking at something. And just the way you pose that question, I thought, yeah, that redefines success for me because I don't ask it that way, but that really causes someone to focus. And a lot of my work is on accepting responsibility, and that's what you're saying to people. I mean,
Sure.
to me, the only career you ever manage is your own. And for people who are waiting for somebody else to recognize them, it may happen, but sometimes you have to tell them you want to be recognized. And, talking about where did I get this gumption personality? I remember when I was at Southern California Edison, before I was at Times Mirror, I went into my boss at the time and I said, next year I would like to be an XYZ job. What do I need to do for you to help me get that job? And he had a list of things he wanted me to do. And I would go in quarterly saying, okay, this is what I did this month, pros, cons. What do you want me? Did you like it? Do you want to see something different next time? And at the end of the year, of course, when I then went and said, okay, now it's time for you to help, he just shied away. So I then took another job within the company. And then all of a sudden I was the single most valuable person he'd ever met, et cetera. But it was kind of a day late and a dollar short. And that's how I ended up at Times Mirror. I was, the corporate secretary, and my boss was the CEO at the time, who then went on, by the way, to become a cabinet secretary in the Obama administration. And I said, I want to have the VP of HR spot. And then all of a sudden, I get contacted by Times Mirror for the same position, essentially. And I went to my boss and I said, hey, I didn't even ask about this. They've reached out to me. I'm one of many candidates. They have internal, external, but and when I got the job offer, I went to him and he said, yeah, I said, I guess to me, this was a big mistake. He said, yeah, I guess I realized that essentially, you were making my life so easy as the corporate secretary that he was focused on himself instead of what I wanted to do. Big lesson. I learned a big lesson there. And then I, moved on over, which allowed me to meet Julie and a lifelong friend and mentor and colleague. But, it's those it really, the story was me commandeering my own career. And I don't know, nobody ever told me to do it. I just did it.
I think you just have
And
to be yourself. And that's what
mhm.
comes out in my newsletters. What you see is what
Yes.
you get. And that's really what I've been like from early, young, very young, and
Mhm.
not getting, it's just like, here's what I am, this is what I do. And you can work with me, you cannot work with me. And when it comes out, you see it come out in the newsletters, then you're really authentic. So that's the other word of advice too. Like if you're going to write a newsletter, just go with who you are. Don't try to be something, because then it gets very hard to write if you're trying to be
Yeah.
something you aren't. So
So Art, what haven't we discussed that I need to know, or question I should have asked you? What did I miss?
I don't think you missed anything, Diana. It's been a fun discussion. I want to cap off that dialogue, though, for everybody out there who's listening. This notion of, hey, how do you want people to experience you? There's another half to that. How are they experiencing you? And we often don't know that, right? And that's one of the reasons too with the newsletter. I like to gain feedback. I like to hear every once in a while somebody will say, "Hey, Art, I wish you would cover this," or "I wish you would change that." I know how I want them to experience that particular newsletter. I know how they want them to experience me, but I don't necessarily always know how they are. So I think we need to pull that together, and that goes for all of us in the
Yeah.
corporate world and in our careers and so forth. Take control of that, as you said.
So I just realized that the time went speeding by. But by the way, Art, I always do because I coach a lot,
Mhm.
and always thought I would be coaching women. I tend to coach pretty much men, which is,
That's
kind of the
funny. Yeah.
reverse of what you were saying. I
Yeah.
always start with a really easy breezy 360.
Mhm.
So they get that sense of how other people are perceiving them.
That's good. Yeah.
And that helps because, one of my favorite questions is my boss gives me feedback. It's really a statement. And what I get back a lot is I always know when I screw up, I never know when I do well. And I'm very practical. And I say, okay, surely within the course of a week, you can thank somebody for doing something nice or give them an attaboy or an attagirl. But I always say don't be phony or fake because people can smell a rat a mile away. And this turns, in addition to causing someone to actually do it, I shouldn't say causing or suggesting, and they end up doing it. And men are much more compliant than women are on these things, by the way. That also gets them redefining success. So they're looking for people to do the right thing as opposed to screwing up. So, anyhow, I need to let you both know that Weaving Influence has published something called the Leadership Carnival for 16, 19 years or something like that, a monthly thing. And Julie, our Winkle Giuliani, has been participating for maybe 16 years. I started 6 years ago with the publication of my first book. They are giving up on it and they are handing the mantle to Julie and Diana. And so starting in January, we're renaming it. It's going to be the Leadership Digest. And I would invite both of you to submit blogs because
I've
I
been
think you
I've
both
been
have.
submitting for the entire duration. Not this year as much because of
Yeah, because
family stuff.
because I was looking at, okay, this past year. So yes, definitely, because it'll be slightly different from what it was because we also want to do engage.
By the way, I was submitting when Dan McCarthy ran this carnival.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Gosh, way back when.
way back when. Yeah.
Yeah, so our trusty Jennifer is going to help us with it because she did it for a while when she was at Weaving Influence.
Mhm.
So I really want to and need to thank you both for being guests today. I learned a lot. I enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did. I hope our listeners
Absolutely.
did. Art, how do people reach out to you? And then Amber, how do people reach out to you?
Artpetty.com, Petty. So artpetty.com will find me every time.
Amber?
And I'm Amber Power without the S at gmail.com.
Perfect. And I do want to tell everybody that 2026 and our first guest will be January 20th. We are the third Tuesday of the month at 10 a.m. But if you miss it, there'll be a YouTube later on and it'll be posted on my website and on Arts and Amber's if they want. Um, we are going to focus on leaders on leadership. And I'm very excited. My first guest is Sarah Smith Orr, who is a PhD. She's been a professor, she's been a practitioner, she's been a CEO, kind of been there, done that, got the t-shirt, wore, ripped it up. She's been out there, and I think it really speaks to the longevity of those of us in the leadership realm that sometimes, obviously, Amber, you're younger than, dare I say, Art and Diana, but sometimes that experience does bring wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Diana. Yeah, and
Thank
Amber.
you,
This was
Diana.
great to catch up and work with both of you. Take care now.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. Thank you and happy
thank you.
holidays.
Happy holidays. Bye bye.
Bye bye.